to the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast. This is episode number 65. And if you joined us every week or you're joining us for the first time, welcome back. Thanks for dropping in with us. As we said last week, there was so much to cover with Vanguard Season 2 going live. We couldn't fit it all into one episode, so all that spillover, all that junk we couldn't fit in the trunk is now being laid before your ears and hearts and minds. This episode, a lot to dive into. We really got deep into the Vanguard Season 2 as well, so we'll be able to give our impressions, the real world testing, the amateur action. That said, Cowboy, I know you played a bit this week, and I know when I was playing with you, you were kind of feeling it some of the time. So how was your week in the Warzone?
Yes, thank you for that introduction there. My week in the Warzone was hot. I played a lot this week. For one reason or another, found myself playing quite a bit every single day. Yeah, I was feeling the sniping, really. I've just been on a tear with the sniper. Also, my movement feels good with the SMGs. Everything seems to be working. Played a bunch of Vanguard as well as, old Rebirth there. But other than that, things are good. I'm being a gentleman and I'm watching a friend's dog today. So if you hear some loud, deep snoring behind me, it's not me falling asleep listening to Tron speak. Not again. It's actually a dog sleeping right next to me. He's one of those dogs that likes to cuddle up right next to you and make a lot of noise. So I'm sorry about that, but I'm trying to be a humanitarian today. But I'm not sleeping because Tron's talking. It's actually a dog. How was your week in the Warzone, Tron?
Wow, well, that
Did I shock you there? What's going on here?
Insult aside, trying to just grasp my thoughts, regain my energy and enthusiasm after that slight. I wanted to ask you said you switched to the MP40 as kind of your secondary sniper support. Is that still going strong?
No. So actually, I tried that. Didn't stick with it. I've been honestly sticking with the ground loot on Rebirth is pretty good in the SMG game. There's like that Volkswagen, what's it called? The Volks.
You like that thing?
I do kind of. I like that gun. It's not bad. And there's obviously, what else is there? I got a gold, what was it? It wasn't one of those.
The well gun? The PP?
Yeah, yes. The well gun also is fantastic. The ground loot, if you can get like a really good ground loot well gun, I love that gun as well. It's the Volkswagen. What is that? What it's called? The Volks.
I don't speak German. I don't actually like that gun. I kind
really?
of avoid
Why
it.
don't you like it?
I just don't think it handles that well. The rate of fire is not great to me. I'd much rather. I can probably find an MP40.
Maybe it's the
gun,
Type 100 I'm thinking of.
Cooper, all those others. It's kind of at the bottom of my list.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I can handle it for some reason, but. So yeah, the SMGs in Rebirth have been great. Not as lucky finding that quality of loot on Vanguard lately, but I've been running the Bren and MP40 loadout every now and then as well when I'm late circle. It's like a little tighter quarters to be sniping. I'll grab my Bren and MP40, but mostly I've been running the Cooper and the car.
Well, that was what I was going to say is I'm surprised, I know you dedicated some time to leveling your Cooper. I don't know if it's all the way up, but it seems like that's certainly in the meta right now.
You think the Cooper's the meta?
I think it's in there. I feel like with all these nerfs to guns around it, I don't think it's been touched much. It feels really great when I'm running it. I kind of am, and like you, like when I'll have a good ground loot one, I'm like kind of want to hold on to that thing a little bit.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I think it was this week. Maybe it was after the recent rounds of nerfs, but I had gotten my MP40, and it was after I'd kind of played a couple of games with my Cooper, and I was disappointed with the MP40. It wasn't quite The fire rate was slower. It just didn't feel the same. You know, it wasn't doing the same kind of damage I wanted it to, and I was longing for the Cooper.
Well, they have some interesting Cooper builds on the map. Rebirth, yeah, there's one that has like no stock. I'm really liking the PPSH. There's a build that you can find, ground loot, that's really nice, tempting me. Wellgun's fantastic, but unfortunately that unlock criteria, I know folks have said it's not hard if you have Vanguard, but I don't have Vanguard. I don't spend money on this game. Think of me what you will, but that is the amateur hour, the Tron policy here. So for that kind of matter of principle, kind of have to stick to the ground loot there. But the MP40 is still doing me great. I'm still very happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the Cooper builds that I've found recently. I can't I don't know. It's all been a blur. I feel like there's been so many changes these last 2 weeks. I can't remember what was then and what is now, you know?
Yeah, well, let's remind everyone what is now, and we can talk about the MP40 and a lot of other guns, as there was quite a bit of weapons tuning that went down. But let's dive into the Season 2 patch notes. Officially went live. The first thing I noticed before reading the patch notes is I dropped myself into a solos on Vanguard Royale, wanted to get a taste of all these new additions on Caldera that we talked about. They got me excited. So I gotta say, for that alone, I think these additions were a win. And because it wasn't like some stupid thing, like the intrigue, the Nova 5 was intriguing, the portable stations were intriguing,
Yeah.
the balloon fucking cool.
Oh, yeah.
But the first thing I noticed, which I didn't realize was official till I saw the patch notes, is in Vanguard Royale game modes, you can no longer purchase UAVs at a buy station.
You can Oh, that is true. Yeah. Yeah, definitely learned that this week for sure. Yeah, which is a total game changer and makes you rethink a lot of things in your loadout.
What are your thoughts on this? You like it? You don't like it?
I don't know. I'm a little torn. I mean, I miss UAVs, but then at the same time, no one else is getting them. And you can get UAVs by completing certain contracts. Like you're kind of guaranteed a UAV once you complete certain contracts on those maps, which I kind of like that because it forces you to be active. It forces you to do stuff. It's like, oh, we want a UAV. We're ready to go. Well, let's go do this contract. I kind of like it, actually. I think it's kind of fun. What do you think?
I'm with you. I was a little like, what? I can't get a UAV, but at the same time, like, hey, if nobody else can, I'm cool with that. I don't usually run Ghost, and if I'm going to get a second loadout after Overkill, I'd rather run Tempered anyways, like I do on Rebirth. So, to me, that was a win. I do like that you can still get them by doing contracts. It motivates you to kind of get out there. I believe it's the question mark contracts.
Yeah.
On the map. So that was, to me, that's cool. And I think what they're doing with this Vanguard Royale game mode is kind of scaling things back. Like there's no longer stuns allowed on it. There's no longer dead silence. You can run though, for a heads up for those of you out there building those loadouts to run Vanguard Royale game modes. You can run now the incendiary grenades. So you can get those back in your loot. Obviously heartbeats, and again, stuns no longer available, which to me, it's more of a purist kind of game mode. So I like it. I think it's a definite positive move.
Yeah, I agree. I've been having a fun time playing it. Played more Vanguard Royale this week than I played Vanguard, period, in several weeks. So something is working there on that map.
Absolutely. That said, let's dive into the new guns they had added, which I don't think they were teased, so they kind of caught me off guard when I was running that solos round. I found a gun I'd never heard of. That was the Whitley, which is an LMG. They describe it as a heavy long-range machine gun that's cumbersome but consistent.
That's how I've been described before as well. I like the Whitley. It's not necessarily my favorite new gun. It's an awkward gun to look at. It doesn't seem to ever have a stock on it, but it's okay. I've heard you say that you like that gun when we've been playing. Am I right?
Well, I think that description, cumbersome but consistent, that's well spoken, because to me it's ADS, it's super slow, it's super clunky, but when you fire it, it feels like it's got relatively low recoil. So I put a dude or two down with it in that solos match, which that's always going to earn my favor, whether the gun sucks or not. So
Yeah, I've gotten a couple downs with it. I haven't gotten a Whitley that I like at long range, you know?
No, yeah, this was a medium range engagement.
Yeah, I haven't like been mounted up anywhere and shredded somebody with a Whitley, or not been mounted up and shredded them with it. So I actually like the next weapon that we're probably going to talk about here, which is the other heavy weapon.
Yes, that said, this is the one making kind of waves in the community, dividing folks. I've seen some folks say this thing is meta, other folks saying this thing is fucking trash. And that is the M40, which, you know, thank you so much, Raven and Activision. It's not like it's confusing enough fucking keeping track of weapons and with 10 attachments and everything's got a letter and a number now. We have the MP40. Well, now we just have the M40. But they describe this as a workhorse assault rifle, naturally steady and accurate.
I am on the side of loving this gun. I think this is going to be a meta sooner than later. I've been like shockingly surprised at how low the recoil is on this weapon, especially at range. If you can find yourself a purple KG M40, I love that gun. It's my secondary long range weapon that I prefer if I'm in a ground loot situation. I really like this gun. I prefer this far more than the Whitley.
Interesting. I can't really give a diagnosis, a take. I don't think I've fired this more than a few shots. Don't think I've run it yet. But seeing some division in the community. We want to hear from you out there, amateurs. If you've got your hands on this M40, do you like it? Do you hate it? What's the build? What's the move for it? What's the engagement style? Is it like a longer range AR or a run and gun type of thing? What are you replacing with it?
Oh, it's definitely longer range AR.
Is it? Okay.
Oh, yeah, 100%. This is not like it's kind of like a C58, honestly, except it feels more like a laser. I don't know if it slaps as hard, but it's more of a laser.
Well, you know I love the C58, and we're going to get to it later, but that's actually going to be part of this discussion here on the patch notes, which was interesting to see. So those were the new additions in terms of weaponry. Another note, which again, like, there were some banging additions in these patch notes in terms of improving just like little things in the game, which I've been waiting for. As you know, you can save your blueprints for Modern Warfare guns. You can save your blueprints for Black Ops guns. But when it came to building these 10 attachment loadouts for Vanguard guns, you couldn't save it. So anytime you wanted to build a new fucking loadout slot, you had to build it from scratch. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You can now save those custom mods for Vanguard guns. So get in there, save your builds, slap them on wherever you want.
Yeah, I knew you were particularly excited about this little update. I think we were on when you made that connection, and it was a giddy moment for the Tron.
I'm all about efficiency. I'm all about ease of use, about the user experience. And actually, we had a friend of the podcast, I think, in the game, Scared of Clowns, didn't even know you could do that, period, I think, which is wild to me. That he's just been building these loadouts from scratch, but just saves you so much time. Like, I want to make a variation of a loadout. Like, okay, I want to start leveling my Owen gun, but I want to pair it with my STG. Instead of having to just rebuild that STG all the way, I just go slap it on there. Boom.
Yeah, if someone should be anything, they should be efficient. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. So that was another minor addition. Wanted to throw that in there. I don't think we covered that at all. Bit of a pleasant surprise, that said. In terms of things we did cover, which I got to experience, was these redeploy balloons, which seemed to me like a major win across the board. The feedback seems to be kind of overwhelmingly positive. We're already seeing some really cool plays, too, from streamers, from sweatlords, using these things to make really cool plays. What are your thoughts on the redeploy balloons now that you understand really how they work? I know there was a little bit of confusion last week.
Yeah, it probably was on the part of the explainer, but I do really like these. I think if you look at the goal of this is to tackle essentially like everyone's biggest criticism of the new map, right? Caldera is really hard to traverse. It's really dangerous in open places. It's a pain in the ass to get around, right? That's everybody kind of has that feedback. Well, this really does help that. It is such a cool way to move around the map, and it just adds more variation. And it's not just like silly, like random chaos like the red doors of Verdansk. There's like some calculus in these. Like it's not like you just basically go up and then you get to choose. It's like if you need to travel somewhere, you can use this and like reassess. I really like these. I think I don't see any negativity in these. I'm trying to think of a reason why these aren't good. I can't find one. Sounds like you're a fan as well.
I am as well, and I think you nailed it. Like, to me, this shows that, it's a cause and effect relationship here. They're taking the feedback, they're identifying, okay, what is a shortcoming in the map, in the gameplay experience? How can we fix that? Obviously, they can't just give us a brand new map out of nowhere. But to me, this is a conscious, calculated kind of move here. And as you said, it fixes, like, to me, I hate traversing fucking Caldera, especially when you're having to move uphill. It's like that's just puts you in such an unfortunate situation. It invites teams to camp, to take the high ground early, and to hold it. Now, though, it flips the script. Like, you could be on peak thinking you're running high, and then, oh, fuck, this guy's raining hellfire above me. And that is cool as shit.
Yeah, I agree. I think it adds... Yeah, it opens up the map more. People are less reluctant to go to places that kind of strategically set you at a disadvantage. Now it's like it really opens the map more. It just is. I think it's just a healthy circulation style flow for the gameplay.
I agree. And one final note though on those, I want to respond to some stuff I see in the community on Twitter among folks talking about this is. Again, I don't play Apex, but apparently this mechanic is used in Apex. It's taken from Apex, these balloons. And people are like, no, they stole it from Apex. Like, so fucking what? Like, the first game that allowed you to use guns? Like, we just can't use that. Some game already claimed it. Every fucking thing out there is stealing off of other shit, and that is the way to improve something. To me, I applaud them for taking a mechanic from another game. They should be borrowing and improving shit, and Apex should take shit from fucking Warzone. Good for them if they do. So to me, like, little punk shitheads that are saying that, like, what do you think this is? Some sort of fucking, only be on one team versus the other. You can't copy, any thoughts on this, man?
You're starting to sound like a dad. I agree with you. I think that what is going to make the game better is all that matters, right? Like, I don't care if they steal a mechanic from a different battle royale game. Like, they're all competing to have the most efficient, fun battle royale game. It's not like, I think a friend of ours said that, and we're not Apex players, but there's like something in Apex where you can turn into like a machine or a robot that's like really tall and you got like crazy arms, and that's a lot more specific to Apex. And if they did something like that in Warzone, I think it would be a little bit different of a story, but this is like a mechanical thing. It's a gameplay thing. It's not like, they're not stealing necessarily like the like fundamental creativity or like what makes the game the game. It's a mechanic of the game. It's bullshit. Like, just shut up. I'm with you.
Yeah, like, oh, COD stole Semtex grenades from fucking Halo with the I forget the name of them, but they're the grenades that stick to people. Like, come on, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you tell them.
Yeah. All right, well, great artist steal. I believe that's a quote of Van Gogh, but don't quote me on that. But I agree with that. That said, let's move on to the next edition, one that we dove into heavily. We talked about, which I have playfully, since you described it so eloquently last week. In the game, anytime I encounter it, I've been referring to it as the fart rounds, but that is the Nebula 5 ammunition. What are your thoughts on this new edition?
The old fart rounds. I'm not against them. I think they don't bring me massive joy. They also don't make me upset at all. I think I'm kind of neutral to them. They're kind of fun. They seem to slap a little bit, right? Like they're not powerful. They're not power rounds or stopping rounds, but they seem to pack a little bit more of a punch. I feel like I've gotten quicker downs with that. Interestingly enough, I believe yesterday or the day before yesterday, there was an update, and I noticed there was far less of these rounds in the ground loot. So I think they just nerfed the amount of Nebula ammo on maps. But I think it's fun. it's kind of a pain in the ass, actually. What I thought it would be more, it'd have more of an impact when you down somebody and their teammate was trying to res them. But what really it's doing is when you kill somebody and you run up to their body to loot them, you end up coughing and getting damaged, which I've been down before by the gas. Like I get into a gunfight, I've got these rounds, I barely kill somebody. Instinctively, I run over their body to pick up their loot, and I get down because of the gas from the rounds that I put in him. Has that happened to you?
Well, no, that hasn't. But what was surprising right off the bat for me is they are available in Rebirth, 100%. I wasn't sure about that. I'm wondering if maybe they are more effective or kind of play into the game more impactfully on Caldera. I haven't got my hands on them on Caldera, but I got to say, like, in terms of Rebirth, they don't really do much to me. They're neutral, like, because when I have an engagement on Rebirth, either I'm going to kill the guy or he's going to kill me. And so if I kill him, the gas doesn't affect him anymore. He's dead. Like you said, yeah, maybe it's going to actually end up ironically affecting me a little bit. So I haven't really done it. One thing I will say, though, as like a tip, or at least my advice is, you know, when you get those rounds, at least for me, I'm like, well, do I throw them on my SMG or do I throw them on my AR? I think to me it makes more sense to do the AR because you're more likely to kind of get it down from a distance. And to me, that's when I think these come into play like more effectively, is when you down someone and you can't get to them right away. This kind of creates like that little buffer that, you know, players are going to pay the price if they want to go and help that guy out.
Yeah, and that's a really smart point. Also, you could apply that to your snipers. Like I've thought about putting these on my car, you know, because if you get a cross map down on Rebirth, you know, that's like one of the bummers about sniping all the time on Rebirth is that the mechanic lends itself to where like they're either going to get rezzed by their buddy or they'll just, you know, everyone starts with a self. It's hard to get kills when you're sniping, but this may change the game. I might try that this week.
That's an investment in yourself, or you're betting on yourself there if you're only going to go for 5 rounds and a clip on the car there.
Well, I mean, for me, 5 rounds, 5 downs, baby.
Wow, I love the confidence oozing from the cowboy here. That said, the final thing, I guess the Nebula 5 bombs have not yet been introduced into the game. I think they're coming later this season, so no feedback yet on those, but certainly intriguing. And finally, though, the decontamination stations, which we did get our hands on those. I literally just deployed one right off the rip to see what was going on, immediately kind of understood what they did. What are your thoughts on these decontamination stations?
I like them. I've seen some really cool play with them. Friend of the pod and good Warzone player, Pole, has been using these late game, has had some impressive victories with them. I think that I like them. I don't see anything wrong with them, except I see that you wrote a note here, and I'm going to totally agree with. You always seem to find him at the very beginning of the game, you know? And it's like, at least in Rebirth, it's like what good does that do you? Because you're going to die, you know, eventually. So it's like you lose it. I think it'd be a really cool mechanic in like the respawning crates, or what do they call those? Not respawning, but
the crates that refresh.
The refreshing crates, thank you. If those like had a trigger, like at a certain circle level, they like started to contain the decontamination stations. I think that'd be really cool. What do you think about them?
Well, yeah, you stole my note.
Yep.
That I agree.
Hey, like you said, really all cool. Art is stolen, right, baby?
Great artist steal. Fair enough there, Van Gogh. But that said, yeah, I think they're a great addition. Again, I heard this was also taken from Apex, so fucking bravo. Shut your fucking mouth about copying people there. That said, it opens the door for more interesting plays. Now, I thought we had said for some reason that they show up on the map when they're deployed. I actually don't think that's the case, right?
They show up on your TAC map, certainly. I have not seen them on my TAC map deployed by people that are not on my team. So I don't think so, but I haven't been victimized, or at least knowingly victimized, by these decontamination stations late game. So I don't have an answer to that, but I haven't seen any enemies on the map. I've seen teammates, but not enemies.
But also we had theorized like, wow, you could potentially combine this with a gas mask and maybe stims and really kind of exploit the gas. It seems like that is possible, though. You can't hold this and a muni box, so you can't get like really loco with it. But it's cool. And I think there's an interesting trade-off too that I hadn't really considered is, especially, again, we play majorly Rebirth here, but when you're deploying these, let's say late circle to buy yourself some time in the gas, there's a little bit of a trade-off because every second you remain in that decontamination station, the gas is pulling away from you to where the circle's going. So you're going to have to still venture out of that little bubble at some point. And if you wait too long, then you're kind of leave yourself vulnerable. So to me, I think it's not like overpowered. I think it's a really nice wrinkle in the game. And it just, it allows some more kind of, I saw a team do it. I got to applaud them. They had holed up in this building waiting for the final circle. The final circle left. I was trying to wait till the last moment to see them push out of this building. So I tried to kind of, as soon as the gas hit me, I didn't have a mask. I jumped off. I kind of checked them out, expecting, they're going to be running out any second. And then what do I see? They're dropping that little fucking station to hole up in that house a little bit longer. So I, myself, not having that, had to kind of leave them behind. And I was like, hey, that was kind of a dope move.
Yeah, or another thing you could do is if you know where the circle is going, you could run deeper into the gas before your opponent would run to where the circle is going to be. Throw that down, hit a stem, get totally filled up, and then the gas, you're just chilling in the gas waiting for it to come to you. You know they're running at you, and you're waiting in the gas for them.
That's true. To me, that's the ultimate way to utilize this mechanic is get ahead of where the gas is going. Build yourself that little buffer beforehand, play it up. Get your positioning where you want. Pull off your gas mask. Be ready to fucking rock and roll.
Yeah.
So, I'd say overall the additions, net positive for sure. The redeploy balloon, home run. This new decontamination station, I'd say that's maybe like a double, a triple. In the Nebula 5 base hit. So all in all, baby, we're scoring runs here.
Wow, the baseball metaphors didn't expect that connection, but I dig it, The
Tronster goes deep, but that said, it wasn't all positive. In terms of additions, so to speak, we've been noticing in Season 2, and I have to bring it to the forefront of the agenda because it is crippling. It is seeming to happen almost every single round. At least on Rebirth, and that is these behemoth game freezes, where as soon as you touch the ground or within seconds of touching the ground, again, it can seem like consecutive matches. The game literally freezes. It seems like, my game crashed. And then all of a sudden, literally seconds later, you're back at it. It's like you just blacked out. And then all of a sudden, where am I? And you're not even in the spot you originally were. What's your thoughts on this there, Cowboy?
It sucks. It totally fucking sucks. It happens all the time. It's a total nightmare. I've been killed more times than I'd like to admit, especially, honestly, it's gotten so bad that you cannot do hot drops anymore because you're going to die. You know what I mean? If you try to drop Peak, if you try to drop Control Center on Rebirth, you can basically guarantee that you're going to freeze and be killed by somebody before. And I've had this happen where you land and you grab a gun, you're about to shred somebody that just freezes for 5 seconds. You're like, I'm going to wake up dead. You're already in the gulag later. It sucks. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's like, how are we not fixing this? How are we not fixing this?
It sucks. As you said, and interestingly enough, it seems like it's affecting console and PC players alike, but what's odd is it seems like the timing isn't identical. So as you said, you can be frozen, but then an enemy can not be, like maybe they just came out of theirs, or I don't know, they didn't get it. And so you can honestly wake up dead, which on Rebirth isn't so bad because you can come back, but on Caldera, if this is happening, that's gotta just be absolutely maddening. The good news is I did see Raven tweet it. It's on their Trello board. They're actively working on a solve here. Seems like they did solve the buy station freezes, so hopefully it doesn't take too long to get this done because, it's a huge bummer, especially when we're going to talk about something a little later on is, players playing in more competitive environments, like it's affecting it. And kind of as you said, one thing you have to honestly do at this point when it gets so bad is plan to drop more safe to where I'm going to hide for a moment, get this freeze out of the way, and then be on my merry way.
Yeah, it's becoming a considerable factor, 100%, and that's bullshit.
So we want to hear from y'all. You've been experiencing it. Is there any way to mitigate it? any settings or something like that so far. Haven't heard anything.
Have you seen this happening to streamers? I haven't watched any streamers this last week, but I'm curious if it's happening to the big boys.
I haven't either. And I mean, again, I got to imagine, I know our PC friends that are running the, beefy PCs are still experiencing it. But again, maybe it's only a Rebirth thing, and the more of the sweatlords are on Caldera. But speaking of sweatlords, speaking of Caldera, wasn't able to check out those 2 new locations so far. I did see some streams of that there, as we've talked about, there's NPCs now. There's computer-controlled bots on the map.
Yeah.
They have guns. They are in like the same outfits, I feel like, as operators. So it's kind of wild. You also get the same like elimination boost and shit. So you're kind of like, whoa, that was bot there. So
yeah, that happened to me actually. I was playing a solo. I did a rare Vanguard solos this week. When your friends basically are denying you and they're playing with new people that you've never met before, but apparently they like to play with them more than you. So I got in a couple of solo matches this week. That wasn't directed at you, Tron, for the record. And I landed resort, and there's like on the map now, there's these little orange yellow circles. And I wasn't sure what that was. I thought maybe it was like that tank thing we talked about. But then again, like, I had no idea what was going on. But what I had found is it's actually an underground tunnel system where there's like great loot. And I found it in solos, which was fantastic. So I dropped down in this hole and I go around, I'm like looting, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. No one's down here. I look up and there's a guy like 15 feet away from me. I'm like, oh my God. And I just kill him instantly, just instinct, killer instinct, like hit my headshots perfect. I'm like, wow, that was sick. I just got a sweet kill. Another guy pulls up. I'm like, oh my God, I literally just like soil myself. I kill this guy barely. Then I didn't know what was going on, but I'm like, oh man, I'm shredding right now. 2 in a row. Third guy comes up. I shred him. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I got 3 kills in 15 seconds. I'm the man. And then I look at my kill counter and they didn't register. And then I realized they were bots and I was a fucking idiot. And I basically almost died to these bots, but I did get them and I found the hole, and there's great loot down there. You just got to not get too surprised by the computer figures that'll come at you.
Well, it had to be an adrenaline rush there for the cowboy, a 3-piece, although it was bots, but now you got a feeling for what it must be like for the sweatlords going up against us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, basically. I don't think they get as scared as I was, though.
Well, that was the new additions. That pretty much wraps it up. In terms of the adjustments that we teased, they issued a lengthy amount of weapons tuning, although lengthy was minor in most instances. So we're just going to dive into that real quick. I already did the heavy lifting, Googling the stupid fucking naming conventions that they inconsistently list. I don't care. The people out there trying to tell me explanations for why they do this, it doesn't make sense, all right? So you're not going to explain it. But that said, let's just get into it. The STG had its ADS speed decreased, so a minor nerf there. The C58, which I was surprised to see, pleasantly surprised, which was kind of made me feel like, fuck, I probably should have been running that, because when you see a gun nerfed, you got to realize, like, damn, that thing was actually probably real strong. But that had its recoil deviation increased, so another nerf, and its recoil magnitude increased.
Okay.
And here's your little gun here, so I'm going to attempt to pronounce it correctly here. It's the Volkssturmgewehr.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there.
German. That had its ADS speed decreased, so also a slight nerf there. The DP27, don't even know what that is. It's a Vanguard gun. Had its lower torso multiplier decreased, only by 0.1. The Bren had its, which, again, I had to reread these in the patch notes, and I'm telling you, it is in there. But the Bren had its left upper arm multiplier decreased. So, like, there's a fucking multiplier for a one limb versus the other. So you shot him on the right arm. It wasn't as damaging as the left arm.
So you're telling me to aim right?
Well, they've since decreased it, so I'm guessing or hoping now they're level, but that to me is bizarre that there's actually hitboxes differentiated from one arm to the other, but it also had its lower torso multiplier decreased, and its right upper arm multiplier decreased as well.
Okay, so they both of the. Why don't they just say the
Wow.
arms? Why do they separate the? Wow.
Maybe one got. I cut off the actual figures on these because it would have been too tedious to dive into like the nuts and bolts there. But here, yeah. So they both were decreased the same though. It was down from 1.1 down to 1 for both the right upper arm multiplier and left. So you're right. I don't know what's going on there. But the M1 Garand had its recoil behavior adjusted. Don't know if that was positive or negative. I got to assume positive because that gun is a sack of shit.
It is a sack of shit. I hate that gun.
The 3-line rifle, also Vanguard, had its ADS speed increased, its ADS movement speed increased, its gun bob decreased, its movement speed increased, and its neck damage multiplier increased. So clearly a buff there for the 3-line rifle. The Gorenko anti-tank rifle had its ADS speed increased. The Kar 98 Vanguard had its ADS speed decreased. The Type 99 had its ADS speed increased, but gun bob decreased.
What's gun bob mean?
Like, I think while you're aiming, maybe it's the sway or it's while you're running around. I'm not sure. Or movement.
I can
don't
see
know.
it being sway like bobble, like a bobblehead gun bob. It's like kind of just dancing around.
I don't know if it's referring to while ADS or not. And then the MP40, which I totally feel like was due for a nerfing, had its maximum damage range decreased and its mid damage range decreased.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that. Immediately have noticed that.
So bringing it a bit more in line, I gotta say, I've seen the results. I'm seeing tons of variety on the short game. I saw an FFAR, the MAC-10, the MP5, a lot of variety. The Owen gun.
Well gun.
And then again here, the Type 100 had its gun kick adjusted. The well gun had its maximum damage range decrease and its mid damage range decreased.
They need to make that that needs to be a MAC-10 style weapon, very short range. It's such a small gun. It makes sense for it to be almost like a hip fire or very close range weapon,
The well gun packs a punch. I gotta say, I wish I could equip it and really level it, though I am right now. My project gun I'm leveling in my pre-games is the Owen gun. Big fan of that. It's a slow slog with these Vanguard guns, but I'm doing it ever so surely. So that was it for the gun-specific nerfs and buffs. Any thoughts on those? Anyone in particular, or before I move on?
Interesting. The Cooper is not on this list, huh? They didn't touch the Cooper.
That's what I've been saying from the outset. Is like the Cooper. Maybe was adjusted on one weapons tuning patch, but otherwise it's kind of out there and it's damn viable.
Yeah, I'm probably going to stick with that. I mean, I know that you don't like the old Volkswagen, but it sounds like they're trying to push that a little bit as well. I've seen that ground loot everywhere, and I'm sure I got it leveled up pretty high. I may try to build a fucking expert level Volkswagen.
Yeah, the Volkswagen. Maybe I'll give it another shot. Although again, it was just nerfed, so
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, yeah, it's
no,
ADS.
it was buffed.
Yeah.
ADS speed
ADS
decreased.
speed was decreased by 5/100ths of a second.
So that's a fucking significant buff, right?
We shall see. That said, in addition to these gun-specific nerfs and buffs, there was some interesting decisions for ammo types across the board. Most notably was Incendiary Ammo was adjusted majorly. And essentially, the base burn damage was decreased, and it no longer decreases damage range by 5%. And it now decreases. So if before, when you would throw this on, it didn't affect like how lethal your weapon was. If anything, it made it more lethal. Well, now it decreases your base damage by 10% and only 3% for sniper rifles. And their explanation is interesting. They said, trading damage now for damage later will have many players still equipped with Incendiary wondering why they lost an even or slightly advantaged fight. For now, Incendiary will provide a niche use on specific weapons where shots are intermittently hit or fire is unreturned. Players with above average aim will want to find a new type of ammunition to lock and load.
So this is a nerf.
majorly. And I mean, like, to me, it seems like I was running it before and I really felt powerful. Well, clearly, like, it was. So yeah, kind of what they're saying is your base damage now is actually going to be slightly less than it would be. So as they said, like, you could be losing gunfights now because that impact doesn't come until after the shots have kind of registered, have played on. It's kind of interesting. Like, I'm trying to think of what would a gun be that they described here where shots are intermittently hit or fires unreturned, like maybe the bar or guns with a real slow rate of fire or sniping. I don't know, but so if you're out there running Incendiary, probably best to get away from that now. Try something else.
And what would you suggest? Is this what we're talking about next?
I don't have it specifically listed, but for my SMG, I switched to the one that increases limb damage. Again, I can't remember the name of it. So I would recommend pivoting over to that. For ARs, I wasn't running Incendiary to begin with. But that said, for ARs, one of the biggest equipped bullet types is Lengthened, which was also nerfed significantly. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
What?
It was nerfed.
Oh, no. Was it? Bullet velocity increased, but that increases the bullet velocity.
But down from 30%.
But what does it say? By 10%.
I don't know. Maybe we should read the explanation.
All right. Well, the bullet velocity was adjusted for lengthening. It says, as a result of Lengthened's monopoly over bullet velocity on Vanguard attachments, build diversity and weapon viability has taken a hit. By shifting this bullet velocity into a wider variety of attachments, we are aiming to provide more viable builds and meaningful choice within this category. Lengthen aside, we have further changes coming to increase diversity in the ammunition category. These changes will ensure the category fulfills more of a playstyle supplemental role for builds rather than a necessary enabler. As a whole, Vanguard weapons have been lacking in bullet velocity when compared to the competition. We felt it was necessary to provide more bullet velocity to Vanguard weapons so they could compete more consistently in long-range engagements. To remedy this, we have added bullet velocity to most Vanguard barrels.
So it sounds like a nerf, right? Because they're just basically buffing everything else. Am I crazy?
I don't know. The way they described it, it says, so for those of you, our source of confusion is here on the patch notes, it says, for Lengthen, bullet velocity increased by 10%, down from 30%. So I think maybe it shouldn't be by, it should be to 10%. They used the wrong, conjunction there. But that said, they then go on to, which we can't dive into because it's just way too tedious, but the 3-line rifle, the AS-44, the STG, a bunch of weapons had their barrels adjusted to where they adjusted ADS speed, they adjusted bullet velocity. Again, it seems like they buffed bullet velocity on a ton of these barrels now, which their explanations kind of, I think it's, it makes sense. They don't want a specific attachment slot to be like, oh, only run this choice. It should be kind of informed by how you want to build that weapon. So to me, it makes sense. I don't really ever notice bullet velocity. Like, to me, that's one of those things I'll usually equip it to maximize it, but I don't really fucking ever notice it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't notice it either. Fire rate is the one I feel like you notice more, but okay. I guess I'll have to rethink this, figure out what the sweats are doing and copy them.
Whew, so that finally wraps up after more than, an episode's worth of discussion, all of kind of the new additions, the new changes that have been brought forth with Vanguard. So I feel like, we owe an apology for our previous remarks about what are these guys doing? They're off partying, celebrating the Activision purchase. They're off focusing on Warzone 2.
Well, I still
they don't
think
give
that
a
they
fuck
were.
about us.
I still think they were partying. These should
know
have been
you
out
do.
a month ago.
I know you do. Meanwhile, the QA guys are fucking drowning in work and trying to just make ends meet. But yeah, I'm sure they're popping the champagne, buddy.
I bet they are.
But that said, whenever there's a new season or a mid-season update, there's one thing you can count on here at the Warzone Amateur Hour that we're going to dive into that most all others ignore. And that's the storyline. And that's the cinematic. So of course there was a brand new cinematic, a new chapter in the Vanguard Warzone cinematic storyline. What were your thoughts on this, Cowboy?
I liked it. They have stepped their game up. You know, we've been very critical about the cinematics that they've released, and I thought this last one was good. I booted the game up, wasn't expecting it. It came on, and I was into it. I'm trying to recall the exactly what happened in it, but I remember the feeling of like satisfaction when I watched it. I was like, oh, you know what? That was pretty cool. I'm excited to play.
I'm right there with you. They clearly learned some lessons. They clearly went to film school. Maybe went and read Save the Cat and some of these other screenwriting books. Got back to the basics, not trying to get too flashy. They're focusing on substance over style. You know, it's simple. The guy narrates, but at least now I can understand what the fuck's going on. They're like up in the Alps trying to like infiltrate this Nazi base where they're, again, I guess, you know, one knock is the whole gas thing is a little played out, but for now they're trying to figure out what this, Nebula 5 factory shit is. And yeah, so they infiltrate this base. They're gonna like defuse it, but then the bomb goes off and all the gas unleashes. I thought that was a really cool sequence where they're all pushing out of this factory while this huge plume of gas. I gotta say, like the action sequences, the animation and all that, fantastic. Like cinema, you know, top tier cinema quality choreography, all that, as opposed to just like dead, shoot, dead. Like it's kind of cool shit going on. Digging that. So I gotta say, yeah, bravo to these guys.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that when the guy is like, oh, well, the Nazis will live forever or whatever, and he hits the gas button, everyone has to run out. It's like it's like classic like Indiana Jones running away from the giant spinning boulder, but it's gas and it's not as cool, but it was still pretty cool. And then they get out, and then like the other Nazis are jumping out, like dying in the gas, and then they rip off on the. It was like, you know, it's a little Michael Bay, but it's okay. I'll take that as opposed to whatever that shit was last time.
100% already, like 2 for 2. Both these cinematics, head and shoulders above what they were giving us for Black Ops, and you know, Modern Warfare for that matter. But that said, we've touched on, or we teased at the end of last episode, that there's going to be some changes coming to Rebirth. Not only the Iron Trials game mode being introduced, but there's actual significant physical changes, which they teased on these patch notes. And they said, as Caldera's secrets come to light, something lurks within Rebirth Island's shadows. Expect substantial changes to the prison island during the mid-season update, which they just mean the map, not, I don't think, specifically prison.
Okay. Curious. Very vague. Don't know what that means, but excited about it, I guess, in a weird way.
Curious indeed. As for those of you who don't remember, when Rebirth first launched, the map has already undergone changes. Control Center wasn't there. It was like a whole construction area. And now it sounds like they're going to be making another addition, maybe getting rid of some buildings, altering some buildings, or perhaps adding some new buildings. I don't know if they're going to necessarily alter the terrain or add to it, but again, intriguing. I've kind of gauged our friend group, our Rebirth squad we run with, like, how do you guys feel about this? And people are kind of where I'm at. Like, I think it's cool, it's exciting, but at the same time, kind of scary, you know? We fear change.
We fear change, and we fear the bugs that come with change.
That's right. And Rebirth is so locked in and great, like, hope they don't stir the pot too much, but, you know.
Yeah. I mean, they added Control Center, which was cool, so you never know.
Exactly. So we'll trust the process. We'll keep you all updated on that. But that said, there was a really interesting bits of information dropped. It was by Charlie Intel, based on kind of the press call we talked about, alluded to last week. So it was an Activision hosted call with press and content creators, and the co-studio head, Pat Kelly, along with Activision game director Josh Bridge and Raven Software's Eric Beisman, they candidly discussed their problems with Warzone and what kind of led us here. And it was really interesting because, again, we've talked about this. We talked about last week, the Frankenstein Warzone had become. Clearly, like, there was not much foresight, and they paid the price for it. Well, to their credit, they acknowledged that and kind of, you know, they pulled back the curtain and said, quote, "We fucked stuff up. but they basically said they're not happy with the state of Warzone that it's in now. They've learned the upper limits of their technology. They said Caldera launch was super messy and buggy, and they didn't want that. But they said, and then kind of like we touched on last week, they said that Warzone was originally built solely as an addition to Modern Warfare 2019, but after its incredible success, they wanted to incorporate it into future COD. And so they felt bloated, though, with the addition of Cold War and then Vanguard. And they said it's left Warzone in a state of limbo. It didn't feel like Modern Warfare anymore, nor did it feel like Black Ops. It made it harder to find bugs and patch due to how much was going on. And so they're it sounds like they're determined to fix the issues and learn those lessons and apply those to the future of Warzone 2, which to me, that's what you want to hear. I applaud them. And I applaud us. Like, we clearly diagnosed this.
Yeah.
We knew what was going on.
I mean, really, it's like just hand us a paycheck at this point. We're basically your spokespeople. Let us in on the inside. I mean, even though we're nailing it, it'd be better if we didn't have to guess. So, yeah, I think we're the
you
best.
might hear like a little tick, 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 tick in the background. That's because this is like fucking 60 minutes of Warzone here with the hard-hitting investigative journalism, all right?
Hard-hitting investigating is Googling now?
Yeah, and theorizing and throwing out wild, outlandish, off-base accusations and theories.
Totally.
All right, well, finally, we're going to be wrapping up here. We still have a little bit we'll touch on next week, but ranked play is now officially live on Vanguard, and they've alluded to the fact that they do want to bring it to Warzone. So maybe not Warzone now, but Warzone in the future could be coming. Which is kind of exciting. Any final thoughts here before we go to our outro?
No, I don't. I guess I didn't see that. I haven't played today, but I guess I gotta dig into this because I'm not sure how that mechanic works. You know?
Well, yeah, they've confirmed though too as well, Raven, that they want to add that to Warzone. They want to do it right, so they're not going to rush it, and that could be coming for existing Warzone, or you got to believe at the least for Warzone 2, which is exciting for the sweat lords, for the folks that want to flex their muscles, which, certainly isn't us, but it seems like maybe you. But that's a topic for next week we're going to dive into, is kind of the allure of the competitive, the tournament play. That said, that is going to do it for us this week on the Warzone Amateur Hour. Back-to-back episodes that are jam-packed, bursting at the seams, and it's only going to be bursting more here on the Amateur Hour as we continue forward. Thank you all so much for dropping in with us. Please like, subscribe, follow, leave us comments, leave us reviews. Help us with the fucking algorithms of the overlords.
Yeah. And let's not forget Patreon, baby. Support us, please. We very much appreciate our patrons.
We dropped in with a patron this week, played some games, also played with some other WA folks. It's always invigorating. We're going to be keeping it going. We got to prioritize the patrons. Not that this is like a pay-to-play thing, but it's certainly, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, we're certainly not going to start a tournament and make you join our Patreon to enjoy that tournament, but at the same time, please support us.
All right, well, we will talk to you all next week. And until then,
good luck in the gulag.